All right, we'll take you back now to our leading story on Mozambique. Of course, this is after we received news that the Border Management Authority has reopened that border post between Mozambique and South Africa, the Lebombo border post, after violence was seen on the side of Mozambique, it being, of course, linked to election-linked violence in the country. But let's get a reaction now. And for that, we speak to Professor Adriano Nuvunga, who is with the Center for Democracy and Human Rights. Prof, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I actually would like to get your initial thoughts on, I suppose, the reaction by South Africa to close the Lebombo border post, certainly whether or not it was a good idea. But if you're surprised that we saw violence spill over to the extent that it would even reach the border of South Africa.
That is true. The border was closed with significant impact in the livelihoods, not only of the people living in the area of the border, but you know that Lebombo border is one of the biggest and busiest borders in our region. So to see it closed, the impact is massive for the people, not only of Mozambique, but the South African part in terms of businesses that have been affected and closed. Now, the reason is obvious: violence. There was violence in the border. That violence was triggered by the police that have responded with heavy-handed force, resulting in killing a young boy, and that ignited people's reaction to the point of escalating to the point of burning vehicles, including the infrastructure that enabled the operation of the border.
Yeah, and then there's so much to talk about, because in fact what you've done, Prof, is you've actually written a piece just a few days ago to talk about what the situation inside Mozambique after these very contentious elections really has been. And you talk about describing these protesters as young, determined and underrated, asking for a right to build a life with opportunity to find work and so much more. But you talked about the level of repression, right? Even technical, even technology and the internet being interfered with in Mozambique.
No, there are three important things that need to be considered. Number one, 11 years ago, Mozambique was set to become a lower middle income country, booming country with opportunities for young people. All that, it has been washed away by corruption to the point that Mozambique, from the possibility of becoming a lower middle income country, is now the fifth most impoverished countries in the world. But the elites, they enjoy the privileges. They enjoy the fruits of having liberated the country. This is number one. Number two, the elections. These elections, they are not credible. They are not reflecting the will of the people. Mozambique's elections have been like that, fraudulent, not respecting the will of the people. One important factor has now ignited all that you see now, is that there is a candidate that is saying no, he doesn't agree with the results, and he's mobilizing the young people. The young people are responding. They're responding because of the level of hopelessness and repression by the state. And repression, look at the difficulty that we have now to communicate. I have to resort to VPNs, and this limiting of the internet, it's a sort of an apartheid, a social apartheid, because it's limiting the possibility of the young people and the impoverished communities, which is where the biggest disappointment with the establishment is. So in a sense, it is limiting internet for a political purpose, to benefit the status quo. So the young people, they're saying, no, this is not right. One, you take away the possibilities of us having a future. You are eating our hope. Now you are responding heavy-handed. You have killed about 30 people, arrested 800 and injured several people. You are shooting to kill. You are entering our homes with tear gas. This is like a war zone now.
Yeah.
And it is the state that is coming with military vehicles. It's no longer about the police. It's military vehicles patrolling in Maputo neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Prof, because obviously then, and the situation is being watched now closely, and one would imagine that it's getting the attention of South African authorities when we need to respond to what's happening at the border with Mozambique, the implications of it economic for both nations. But I wonder what you make about the speed in which there is a response. For instance, the Southern African Development Community, SADC, is saying that from the 16th to the 20th of November in Harare, they will discuss elections in the region and look into the crisis in Mozambique. Today is the 6th of November, but they're planning to do this on the 16th. Some would argue that this is an urgent matter, the protests and repression that we are seeing in Mozambique.
No. I don't think so. There are two things. Number one, the speed at which that South Africa has responded to reopen the border is because though the border, the traffic, the transit, it benefits our communities, but importantly, it benefits the elites. If you look at the number of trucks that on a daily basis they cross the Lebombo border, about 1,000 trucks cross that border per day. Those trucks are not transporting food for our people. They are transporting minerals. And those minerals, they don't benefit our people. They don't pay anything in the streets in terms of tariff. They don't pay anything in terms of royalties, etc., because it benefits the elite. So the closure of the border was affecting directly the interests of the big people at the presidential level. All those people that you know that they are corrupt, they are benefiting of that. So they rushed to open the border to enable that to happen. Now, SADC was here observing the election. They saw the fraud, they saw everything, but they left. They are nowhere near to be seen. And you would have expected that SADC would have returned. Look at the EU. The EU was here with 3 times the number of that SADC has deployed. They were here. They are still here because they have seen that the level of fraud, it is very likely that it would lead to post-election violence. So they are still in town. Not only in town, but they are engaging the local authorities in terms of election management bodies to say, ensure transparency. So they are calling them to publish, for instance, the tally sheets coming from each of the polling stations, and they don't have it. Can you imagine? In 21st century, you are publishing results, but you don't have the tally sheets. So where do you get those results from? Okay. But it is the EU that is engaging, but SADC is nowhere near to be seen.
Yeah, so where SADC is concerned, we await the 16th to the 20th of November to see what intervention they'll give us. I'm going to have to leave it there, Prof, but we really do appreciate your time.
Tomorrow people might die. Tomorrow people may die because it is the deed tomorrow. And the SADC, where is SADC now? Nowhere to be seen.
And the violence continuing there in Mozambique. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Adriano Nuvunga, speaking to us there. He is with the Center for Democracy and Human Rights.